Well, I'm going to give a very quick bio first before we get started. Andreas just said he's been working in the same company for 20 years. That was the bio, which is true, but I'll give a little more, which is, and most of you I'm sure already know Andreas, but Andreas is the CEO, first was a pharmacist by training, but is the CEO, managing director, and member of the board of Chroma Pharma, which you may know is his family's business, a multinational family business, started by your father in 1976, if I'm right. Andreas has had various roles in the company, but most recently, after 20 years, culminated in the role of CEO. We're going to talk a lot about Chroma, but Chroma is a global player in the field of minimally invasive aesthetics, and manufacturing is really at the hub and at the core for you. A leading manufacturer of premium quality HA fillers, as well as supplying HA-based products for reconstructive applications in orthopedics and ophthalmology, which is another important piece of the business. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about the portfolio, why it matters, why it's important, and the thinking behind this talk is, what does it take to really build a successful business? We've got 20 years behind us here, but to build a successful business that's actually getting ready to go public in Europe. And it's a very thoughtful and very purposeful beginning. And I think it's an exciting story, and I want to share a little bit about it with you. So Andreas, to start, I love that you're a storyteller, I really do, and I love that this is a family business. So will you tell us how the family got started, how your parents decided this was the right idea, and the why behind this?
Of course. First, I realized how boring it is. 20 years in the same company.
No, it's
not. And pharmacist, that's even more boring. And that's the start of the story, how the company was created, because my parents are pharmacists too. And I don't know if you're familiar with working in a pharmacy in Europe. That's not the most exciting thing you could imagine, actually. So what my parents did, actually, they started really to try to trade pharmaceuticals and buy and sell whatever they could get hold of, more or less. So they called any company in Europe to get a license to sell the products, approve the products in Austria, sell the products in Austria. So that worked 15, 16 years. And then there was a supplier in ophthalmology who could not deliver. So my parents said, oh, why don't we produce it ourselves? And so that was the start of our manufacturing in the year 91. Contract manufacturing and then developing our own products. And so this was the vision of my parents when they said from trading, contract manufacturing, own products, and then roll them out globally. So that's where we are today. Yeah.
And how did they start with ophthalmology? Because that was the beginning. Why that space to begin with?
It was a coincidence, I would say, more or less. It was really the luck of the time. There was a really disruptive technology piece. So this was changing the surgery, cataract surgery, to a minimal invasive surgery, and that was the moment. So my parents grabbed this opportunity, started to develop products, contract manufacture, then develop products. That was my brother, and then I joined. And then there was a big opportunity. Some of you might remember the company Cornell. Yeah. And Cornell was acquired by Allergan. And Cornell had, as the name says, a big ophthalmic part.
Yeah.
And Allergan went there and bought the Juvederm business. And I was writing a handwritten letter to David Pyatt and said, please, David, can I buy the ophthalmic junk? And that worked out, basically. Yeah. So we were then, in 2006, an ophthalmic company. About 80% of our business was ophthalmology, a bit orthopedics, and a very small piece was aesthetics.
Talk a little bit about that transition then to aesthetics, because now it's a huge piece of your portfolio.
Yeah. So this was, so we were really ophthalmic, and we did everything. Our R&D focus was in ophthalmology, and we obviously did it so good that one day Mike Pearson convinced us to hand over our business to Valiant at that time, and then Bausch & Lomb, basically. So that was the end of ophthalmology. And then we were here, and we had still our manufacturing, our HA manufacturing, which is the nucleus of our company, what we do since 91, since 32 years now. And we had a lot of funds. So what did we do? We said, okay, let's basically redevelop everything, and redevelop from scratch. So we started with 3 products in aesthetics, and then we were really trying to compile a very nice aesthetic portfolio over the years, and that was not easy actually, because ophthalmology is something where you easily get the sense. You see people are blind, they go cataract surgery, and then they see. So it's a very thankful business. So then when you enter aesthetics, it was not so easy to find ourselves there. So, but I think now we really found out how valuable this business is, how people who get treated enjoy what they do to themselves. They get the self-esteem. They have a very positive psychological impact. So that was a big learning curve. Besides that, it helped that my wife is running a clinic in the research center in aesthetics. So
you had real-time information coming.
I was just listening.
Yes.
As always.
Yes. Talk about, you started to mention your portfolio, but it was really purposeful over the years how you built it up, and thinking about the customer's needs, both from the physician's point of view, but also the consumers. Talk a little bit about how you understood that, the portfolio you started with, and then how important it was to you to bring a toxin into that.
Yeah. So, as I said, in 2015, we started from scratch again with 3 fillers, and the first thing was, what do we need with the filler? We need a toxin, of course. That's like salt and pepper. This goes together. That's the first thing. That's the entry point when someone goes into an office. And then we put ourselves in the shoes of the doctor and said, but that's not enough. And I'm sorry for our competitors that toxin filler for all the years. So we said there must be something more versatility in the treatments. So we thought, what could be in between these toxin filler treatments? And so we started with lifting threads. Very interesting, very popular in Europe, and we were the first movers there, like this collagen new formation. What else did we do? We have a PRP system. We have biostimulators, based on polynucleotides. So we really managed to make this very nice portfolio, thinking about what's important for the patient. And for the patient, it's not only important to get rid of wrinkles, it's as well the skin glow, it's the skin quality. So this is the second part of our product portfolio. And as well for the doctor, it's really, I think, really important to have more options, a toolbox in his hands where he can see the patient instead of 2-3 times a year. He can see the patients 5-6 times a year, and always do a new type of treatment, a combination treatment, to combine like a filler with a biostimulator or a thread with a PRP. So there's so many options, and it makes it really a very entertaining relation between the physician and the patient. And so the patients are amazingly satisfied. Wrinkles are taken care of, and the skin quality, the skin glow, pores, the elasticity, skin tone, so all of that. So I believe both arms together in this portfolio, they all pay into very happy patients.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting, how much time you spent understanding the consumer's needs, the patient's needs, happy patients, as you say, and also the physician office needs. So you really thought about it like we hear some of our small startups thinking about it. What is the office flow? How does it fit in? How many times will a consumer come back? That for a company of your size, you acted like a really small company and really started with the unmet need and built it from there very purposefully.
We have, on top of that, we have a lot of business services. We have anatomy courses, hands-on works. We have developed a practice management software, a software where the doctor can track his patients. He can have the appointments. He can see what's my best sold treatment. So, we built this basically. We're a startup company, a 47-year-old startup company, which is true for aesthetics, because in 2015 we started. Right. Now it's 23. So we are a startup company right at this inflection point for execution.
Yeah, absolutely. And on those lines of execution, you understood the customer really well, but you also had plans to build sort of a lifelong business. I mean, you already had one, but it was a business that would withstand the test of time. So can you talk about, because we have a lot of startups in the audience, kind of the fundamentals of building the business from the business side? What things you thought about that were so important and foundational to you to have the kind of business that could sustain?
So number one, of course, it's always the products. That's one part, and that's really important to have a broad basis here. But second important is, and it's people. And people make the difference. This I say now after 20 years in the same company, because 20 years ago I would say, easy, I can exchange whoever I want to exchange. It's not true. It's you have a lot of people, then they build something with you together. Sometimes it's maybe hard to understand that people don't grow with the company in the same speed. So that's a tough one to say, okay, who's more important, the individual or the company? So probably it's the company, but we take good care of our people. We have invested a lot in culture, in our culture workshops. We define really how we want to work together, what we can expect from each other. Yeah. So I think these two things, products, people, and of course money.
Yeah, and of course money. When you think about where you're moving, which is for you a really big deal coming up, that you are going public in the European exchange, can you? Not many of the companies here will have that opportunity. A lot of companies will get acquired much earlier than that. But again, I think if you're building a sustainable company, if you do all the right things to build the company as if you're going to own it for the long run, good things will happen to you. You will get acquired, or you'll have an opportunity for an exit through the public markets. Can you talk about how purposeful that decision was? And because most people don't have this opportunity, take us through the path of kind of the last 18 months. What does it take to get to be a public company?
Yeah, it's tough. I look much younger and fresher, typically. We prepared. Actually, we prepared for this moment 4 or 5 years ago. So when we decided to say, okay, first thing what you need is to have a good audit firm. It's as simple as that. You need one of the big 4 companies who audit you so that you can be listed. Yeah. So that's what we did 4 years ago, but with not the real intention to go public. Last year, then we started to talk to many investment banks about what is better, an IPO by ourselves, or is it better to make a SPAC transaction? Because SPAC, they don't have a very good reputation, at least in the US, I believe. And so we were balancing this until there was the right SPAC coming, which is from the setup completely different. These guys, they stay with us, and they're like a German SPAC company, and the Germans are very correct. So Austrians as much as the Germans, at least as much. So they're a reasonable SPAC company, and then we were really considering what is better. Do we wait now for 2 more years until we do our own IPO, or do we see what can be done with the funds, the proceeds now? And so we started then really doing calculations, and we started like a bit of wargaming and understanding what could be done and what could be achieved with all these funds. And then the decision was clear, and then we said, okay, probably it's now the moment. This SPAC transaction goes much faster than our own IPO. And that was the decision, because we're now at this inflection point. Everything is set up. The company, the people, the products, the structure, everything is ready. So it's now the moment to kick off, and we're really like the new kid on the block. When you look in Europe, so we're the first toxin after. I'm sorry that I always neglect Evolusum. So they are on the market too in Europe, but only in two countries. So in Europe we are in whole Europe, the game changer, the first toxin since 15 years, I would say. Yeah, like Xeomin was approved in 2007.
Yeah,
and so we see that doctors really appreciate that there is a new option, and they can now choose out of 4 companies. instead of 3 before, because we have really the full portfolio and even a broader portfolio than our 3 big competitors.
Now, being a public company, though, has a lot of other issues that come with it and ways of managing your business. Maybe talk again from a business perspective, what needed to be true in order to go public? And I'm talking about things like very predictable revenue, understanding the returns of each practice. Can you share a little bit with the group here so they understand what does it take to be a public company?
A lot of regulations, a lot of rules, a lot of paperwork, a lot of documents. I think it's good somehow because you're forced to think more about your business. You're forced to be more diligent. And before, as a private company, it's always my money. And I could do with my money whatever I want. If it's a public company, you better be careful.
You have shareholders.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't want to, number one, disappoint them and overpromise, underpromise. So I think it really forces you to be much more disciplined and to work on the business, to really as well get very deep into the sales force even, and make people aware that it matters what they do and it matters how they do it and that what we expect from them. So I think it's for the moment, I would say a very good process. In 1 year, I don't know if I can confirm this.
Outside of the regulations, what do you think will change most about your business? And you talked about some of the opportunities that come with raising capital, because a lot of us think of an IPO or a SPAC as an exit, but really it's a fundraise. Right?
Exactly,
so
no.
How do you think about and what excites you the most about what's coming in aesthetics and where you think about putting those dollars?
There is, of course, and as well, that David Pyatt is such a genius what he did with Allergan, and he made it, I think, very simple to the point and said, more calls, more sales. And I think as simple as that.
That's very simple.
As simple as that. And this is probably a big chunk of what we will do with the proceeds, is go directly in the markets, get more people in the field, get more clinical trials, get more trainings, more with our customers together and work with our customers and get really on this sales execution. Of course, besides this, we have a pipeline clear. So for all these pillars we have, for the toxin, for the filler, I saw before from Jean-Yves Coste that our BDD-free filler technology is already public. For the biostimulators, there is a lot of things to be done. So we're very excited. We're one of the first movers here with a complete different concept. So I would say the biggest chunk goes into sales execution, and then the next is for R&D, so that we're still there in 26 and onwards. And as you said, I think it's not a sale of the business; it's more a fundraise in order to be even more stronger. And as a private company, the biggest limitation is of course money. So we always did what we could afford to do, what we wanted to afford.
Well, you clearly did an excellent job to get to the point of even going public. Your business has to be really buttoned up to go to that point. One of the things I also think about is expansion from a geographical perspective. You've already started to license your technology, to in-license other technologies. How do you think about your opportunities once you have more capital as far as your geographic reach? And maybe you can talk specifically about the United States as a potential.
Yeah. So 2 major markets, I would say, outside of Europe, or 3. 2 major is the US and China. So in China, we have a joint venture with Sinopharm, state-owned company. They have a toxin on the market, Lantox. I think it's as old as Botox, and Lantox has about 85% market share in China. So here we partner with them, and as I said before, it's like salt and pepper, the portfolio thinking. So their toxin, our filler together.
Right.
And the same in the US. So it's with Hugel, with our partner Hugel from Korea. So we made a joint venture, which is, of course, Hugel dominated, and they're in the driver's seat here. And so the same concept applies here. The toxin gets approved, and our fillers.
Any thoughts on the timing of that you can speak to?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I tried to get this information.
confidential.
Yeah,
It's
I
fine.
tried to get this information, but I couldn't find the proper wording.
Okay, no
Because
problem.
Hugel is a public company.
Yeah,
too.
it's always
That's the
something
reason.
to look
Yeah.
forward to is that he's got a big announcement with timing coming soon. As our last question then, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of early stage companies. When you think about the growth of your company over time, the change in people over time, the change in technologies, what advice would you give this group who are starting out and want to build a business for the long run? Okay, I mean, and spend some time talking about what you think is most important for them to consider.
Last week, I was on vacation in Thailand, and I was thinking about what is really the character. I think what you need most, and I believe I could answer this for me now, and I would say persistence. So it's persistent and just work on it. And even if there are things which are unforeseeable, and that's most of the time, it's things are unforeseeable. Stay on it, work on it, and have a good, reliable team. Be honest with them and be persistent. So that's what I would believe. Yeah.
Yeah, perseverance goes a long way, as many of you know.
It's not intelligence, I understood. It's more persistence.
No, really, thank you. Well, thank you. I know it says please wrap up. Our time is up. So thank you very much. And I'd like you to stay here for our next panel.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.